to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. On today's headlines.
We're working to...
The Center of Severe Tropical Storm Florita, based on all available data from Pag-asa, including those from APARI Doppler Weather Radar, is estimated to be over the coastal waters of Isabela. Around 200 supporters of Malaysian ex-Premier Najib Razak gathered outside the Putrajaya court building to greet the former leader as he arrived to continue his final appeal against his corruption conviction over the 1MDB financial scandal. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. hailed the country's leading supermarkets for agreeing to sell sugar as low as 70 pesos per kilogram, describing their act as a classic display of the spirit of bayanihan. And later, a Myanmar grandfather-granddaughter pair on a mission to revive the art of juggling. First in our news, Tropical Cyclone Signal number 3 has been hoisted over the northern and eastern portion of Cagayan as Florita intensifies into a severe tropical storm, according to Pag-asa today. Florita now packs maximum sustained winds of 95 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 115 kilometers per hour. Signal number 3 has been hoisted over Cagayan area. Today, heavy to intense with at least torrential rains will be experienced over Cagayan, Isabela, Cordillera Administrative Region, Ilocos Region, and Zambales. Moderate to heavy with at times intense rains will prevail over the northern portion of Aurora, Bataan, Tarlac, and the rest of Cagayan Valley. Light to moderate with at times heavy rains are likely over Metro Manila, Region 4A, Calabarzon, Camarines Norte, and the rest of Central Luzon. Meanwhile, Pag-asa also said winds may reach storm force in strength in areas under signal number 3, while winds may reach gale force in strength in areas under signal number 2. Strong winds, breeze to near gale strength winds will be experienced in areas where signal number 1 is now in effect. And the Center of Severe Tropical Storm Florita, based on Pag-asa, including those from APARI Doppler Weather Radar, is now over the coastal waters of Isabela. Florita made landfall over Muaconacon, Isabela at 10:30 today in the morning, and the RRMC spokesperson Mark Timbal gives us an update on the preparations the Philippine government is doing for the storm. Let's listen in.
Yung mga karampatang paghahanda po para sa bagyo ng ganitong proportions. Atin pong tinututukan yung mga areas po na landslide prone at flood prone dito po sa mga area na tatahakin itong bagyo dyan sa North Luzon. Kung matatandaan po natin, a lot of those areas po na binabagyo ngayon ay niyanig po ng earthquake, nitong nakalipas na Abra earthquake, at mataas po ang tsansa ng pagguho ng lupa dyan sa mga areas na yan, lalo na po din sa ating kabundukan. Kaya po yung ating pinaalala sa ating mga kasamahan po na disaster managers and LGUs, yung pagsasagawa po ng maagap na evacuation activities, yung pag-inventaryo sa mga relief items na kakailanganin, pati po yung pagpreposisyon ng mga kakailanganing kagamitan, mga search and rescue teams, and road clearing operations, equipment and personnel. May deployment na rin po ng ating law and order cluster dyan po sa area, mga kapulisan po natin para pangalagaan yung mga evacuation centers. Nagkaroon po tayo ng mga suspension po ng klase at saka work, pagtatrabaho sa pamahalaan sa 162 municipalities and cities po, nagsuspende ng klase, at 60 municipalities and cities naman po ang nagsuspende ng trabaho sa pamahalaan. Although nagkaroon na po ng pagbubukas ng iba't ibang mga kalye, no, dahil nga po lumipas na yung puro ulan na lang doon sa area, wala nang pagbaha. Diyan po sa may La Union, in the municipality of Bagulin, sa area po ng Tagudtod, nagkaroon po ng landslide po at medyo naharangan yung kalye. Kaya po passable lang po to single motorcycles. Yung kalye po diyan. Meron naman po, diyan naman po sa Bagao, sa bayan ng Bagao, in the area of Nangalinan, may tulay po dyan na hindi po pwedeng madaanan muna bilang pag-iingat po para po sa posibleng pagbaha or maging disgrasya dun sa area. Sa Albay naman po in Region 5, meron po tayong road closure dyan sa area ng Libon in San Isidro. Not passable to light vehicles muna. Yung sa Camarines Sur naman po in the area of Nabua, in the San Roque Madawon Road, not passable to all types of vehicles. Also in Sorsogon, yung Katamlangan Road in the municipality of Pilar, yung spillway of Barangay Katamlangan, medyo hindi mo na nagpapadaan po dyan. Ang ating pong abiso sa ating mga kababayan, ano po, kung meron po kayong nakaschedule na leisure travels, lalo na po dyan sa mountain areas or doon talaga sa areas na binabagyo ngayon, pwede mangyari po sanang ipagpaliban po muna ninyo yan.
In other news beyond the region, a historic flooding emergency in Dallas as the area gets half the year's worth of rain in a single day. A weekend of storms forced hundreds to evacuate in the latest weather disasters to hit national parks in the U.S. And look at the scene in Dallas as torrential rains caused havoc in parts of Texas. Take a look.
I thought I was gonna die. Right then, I was just panicking because I just wanted to get out of my car and get out of the water. I wanted to get my car out of the water.
Forecasters predicted more precipitation throughout the southern part of the country for the rest of the week. Flash flood warnings were in effect around Dallas, with forecasters predicting difficult conditions on the roads, and video showed vehicles becoming submerged in floodwaters while driving in the city overnight. The National Weather Service said northern Texas was expected to be walloped this week with up to 7 inches of rain, with parts of the state of Mississippi also expected to be affected. The flash flooding came after heavy rains pummeled the drought-hit Southwest, with several inches falling in a short space of time. The downtown area of Moab, Utah, was left under 3 feet of water by the rains. Jetal Aginotri, who park officials said they were still searching for on Monday, was one of a number of hikers hit by surging waters Friday when flash floods tore through an area of Zion National Park in Utah called the Narrows, known for red rock cliffs and towering canyons. In New Mexico's Carlsbad Caverns National Park, around 200 people had to be evacuated after being trapped for several hours by rising waters. No one was injured in that incident. City authorities said Shanghai will switch off decorative lights along its famed Bund riverfront for 2 days from Monday in response to a nationwide heat wave that has sent power demands soaring. Multiple provinces have announced power cuts to cope with the surge in demand, driven partly by people cranking up the air conditioning to cope with temperatures as high as 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Ornamental lights, billboards, and video screens on both sides of the Huangpu River would be turned off on Monday and Tuesday, according to the notice. The heat wave has reduced stretches of the Yangtze River, China's most vital inland waterway, to unprecedented drought levels, according to official data. And that has resulted in high pressure on hydroelectric plants that supply power to some of the country's key economic zones. China has been hit by extreme weather this summer, including record temperatures, flash floods, and droughts, phenomena that scientists have warned are becoming more frequent and intense due to climate change. In other news, around 200 supporters of Malaysian ex-premier Najib Razak gathered today outside the Putrajaya court building to greet the former leader as he arrived to continue his final appeal against his corruption conviction over the 1MDB financial scandal.
I'm here to support Dato' Najib today. Yeah. And I think he is the best PM ever in Malaysia history. So he did very well during zaman Dato' Najib in terms of economy of the country, education. So we really appreciate he's a good leader.
So I came here this morning to give moral support to our former Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Najib Razak, also known as Bosku. Moral support to him. He must know that he still has a supporter. Whatever the result, we still support him. That's all.
Prosecutors on Friday urged Malaysia's highest court to uphold former Prime Minister Najib Razak's 12-year jail sentence for corruption as they wrapped up their case, saying his dishonesty has been established. On the second day of hearings at the federal court, the prosecutors pressed on with their arguments despite Najib's claim that he was not being given a fair trial. Najib's lead counsel, Hisham Po Take, himself had asked to be discharged from the case on Thursday but was rejected. 2 days earlier, the court also dismissed his appeal for a 3 to 4 month adjournment to help him prepare for the case as he had been recently appointed. Following a lengthy high court trial, Najib was found guilty of abuse of power, money laundering, and criminal breach of trust over the transfer of 42 million ringgit or $10.1 million from former 1MDB unit SRC International to his personal bank account. The Department of Education, or DepEd, said Monday's opening of classes went smoothly and peacefully, but conceded that classroom shortage remains to be a challenge. Nonetheless, the start of in-person classes may be considered a victory for the learners, according to Vice President and Education Secretary Sara Duterte in her speech at the National School Opening Day program in the Dinalopihan Elementary School in Bataan. Let's listen in.
Paalala namin sa ating mga learners, sa ating mga anak, na hindi ang inyong mga magulang, hindi ang paaralan, hindi ang inyong mga guro ang magpapabago ng buhay ninyo. Kayo at ang inyong determinasyon ang magpapabago ng buhay ninyo. Isang hakbang na buong tapang na ginawa ng Department of Education sa kabila ng mga hamon at takot na dala ng COVID-19 pandemic. Hindi po natin binabalewala ang mga pangamba na dulot ng pandemya. There are no excuses. Hindi na po natin kaya na muling maantala pa ang pag-aaral ng mga kabataang Pilipino.
We all know, pre-pandemic pa lang, talagang may shortage tayo in classrooms. No? So right now, ang ginagawa natin temporarily would be yung shifting schedule pa rin, na alam naman natin lahat.
Gusto ko pong face-to-face kasi po yung sarap ka-banding mga classmate, tsaka si teacher po nakikita ko na.
Here you can actually enjoy learning and actually meet the persons you see in Zoom classes. And when you're learning online, it doesn't feel like fun.
Kanina po, sobrang saya ko na nakita ko po yung mga estudyante, lalo na po yung nakita ko yung mga saya sa mga mukha nila. Siyempre po, ito na po yung pagkakataon namin na maibigay yung best namin as a teachers. At matutukan sila kasi alam naman po namin kung gaano kahirap yung pinagdaanan namin nung panahon ng pandemya. Siyempre po, mas prepared namin yung face-to-face kasi po iba kapag kaharap po namin mismo yung mga bata.
Ano difference?
Sa nag-online po kasi kami, marami po kasing mga challenges. Like, minsan nawawalan sila ng connection. Minsan hindi kami naririnig ng mga bata namin. Unlike po na kapag face-to-face talaga, natututukan namin ng husto yung bata namin.
Napansin ko dito, yung 2 years na naka-online sila, very limited kasi yung time nila para sa pag-aaral kasi 30 minutes lang per subject. So napansin ko, yung challenges namin doon, syempre dahil limited lamang ang oras, ay hindi natin, yung kanilang learning ay parang limited din. Hindi katulad nitong face-to-face na mas mahaba yung oras ng kanilang pag-aaral na kung saan matututunan na lahat yung mga iba't ibang mga skills and competencies at mas mahaba ang kanilang pag-aaral.
According to a business report, the Teachers Dignity Coalition, or TDC, agreed with DepEd's assessment that the opening of classes for this school year was smooth and peaceful. The TDC attributed this to the close coordination of the local government units, community, police, and parents through the Oplan Balik Eskwela of DepEd. The Department of Education also said it is carefully looking into the viral Facebook post calling out the alleged bullying by a teacher during the first day of classes. Take a look. In a Viber message, DepEd spokesperson Michael Poa said the concerned regional information officer is already aware of this matter and they are coordinating with the one who posted the incident. Meanwhile, Jeannie Vargas, the author of the trending post, said her niece was discouraged from now going to school. No, she said the kid doesn't want to go back to school, fearful to face the teacher, anxious to go to school. They're actually in our local DepEd office right now talking with a lawyer and a doctor for my niece. She told this to the Philippine News Agency. The trending post, which has almost 150,000 reactions and almost 70,000 shares, included a picture of the handwritten note of the alleged conversation between her grade 5 niece and the teacher during the first day of in-person classes. The handwritten included words like bruja, meaning witch, bobo, meaning dumb, and hayop, meaning animal, which were allegedly uttered by her teacher as her niece had a hard time finishing their writing activity. The condition of 3 Jakarta residents who were in close contact with the first confirmed monkeypox patient in Indonesia, who was announced by the Health Ministry on August 20, has been good so far. The 3 people currently have no complaints regarding their health. Jakarta Provincial Health Office Widya Situti said her office is committed to continuing to conduct tracing of close contacts of the monkeypox patient. They carried out epidemiological investigations on 11 suspected people around since May 20. After going through laboratory tests, all of them were found to be negative for monkeypox. Widya Stuti further said that her office will continue to remain alert against the disease since the number of monkeypox cases in the world has seemed to be on the increase. In tonight's other news, a major announcement today from Dr. Anthony Fauci. First, take a look. For 38 years as the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Fauci says he's leaving that position as well as his role as President Biden's top medical advisor in December. The 81-year-old has advised 7 presidents, most recently on the COVID crisis. And the news continues here on Asean in Focus. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. hailed the country's leading supermarkets for agreeing to sell sugar as low as 70 pesos per kilogram, describing their act as a classic display of the spirit of bayanihan. Marcos made this remark after reports reaching Malacanang showed that supermarket and grocery chain owners brought down the price of sugar to 70 pesos per kilo from a high of 90 to 110 pesos per kilo. Supermarket and grocery chain owners earlier assured that the availability of 70 pesos per kilo of sugar is good until their supply lasts. Marcos likewise directed the Department of Trade and Industry to monitor participating retailers' compliance to the agreed purchase limit of 1 kilo per consumer. Last week, President Marcos met with owners of Robinson Supermarket, SM Supermarket, and Pure Gold Supermarket, where they all agreed to the suggested retail price of 70 pesos per kilo of sugar. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. on Saturday pledged to improve the Philippines' relations with Cambodia as the two countries celebrate the 65th anniversary of diplomatic relations. In his letter to Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni, dated August 20, President Marcos expressed his resolve to further boost the enduring friendship between the Philippines and Cambodia. President Marcos said, "I am committed to further strengthening and expanding our partnership and cooperation as both our countries strive towards greater economic and social development for the benefit of our peoples." The Philippines and Cambodia established their official diplomatic relations on August 20, 1957. President Marcos says while the two countries' diplomatic ties were formalized in 1957, the visit of His Majesty King Norodom I to the Philippines in 1872 established the connection between our nations and peoples. And President Marcos Jr. will also be embarking on state visits to Indonesia and Singapore by September, according to Malacanang. Announcing this on Friday, Press Secretary Trixie Cruz Angeles said they don't have additional details but are confirming that his state visits will push through. Let's listen in.
Iko-confirm ko rin lang po yung dalawang state visit to Indonesia at saka to Singapore. Ditong September 4 to 6 sa Indonesia at 6 to 7 sa Singapore. Actually, wala pa tayo masyadong detalye pero kino-confirm namin na tuloy pa po ito. As for the United
A head of state embarks on a state visit upon the invitation of the leader of the host country. In tonight's other news, Russian media says the country's security service, the FSB, has, quote, solved the murder of the daughter of a key ally of President Putin. She was killed in the weekend of a car bomb attack outside Moscow. FSB says Ukrainian special services prepared the attack. Ukraine had earlier denied any involvement in this blast. Let's listen in.
До речі, підкреслю, що Україна, безумовно, до цього не має відношення, тому що ми не кримінальна держава, якою є Російська Федерація, і тим більше не терористична держава.
Daria Dugina, the 29-year-old daughter of Russian ideologue Alexander Dugin, is an outspoken advocate for the invasion of Ukraine. The FSB said the person responsible was a Ukrainian woman born in 1979 who had rented an apartment in the same building where Dugina lived. After the car bombing, she had fled to EU member Estonia, it added. And this attack comes as the war seems to have taken a turn. Ukraine now in the offensive in a Russian-controlled territory. Over the weekend, more attacks in Crimea. Ukraine is bracing for retribution ahead of its Independence Day on Wednesday, the same day marking the 5th month of this war. After Ukrainian resistance thwarted an early Russian push on Kiev, Moscow's forces have focused on gaining ground in the country's east. Around 500 Filipino and Australian troops will be exchanging knowledge and skills on jungle and urban operations in a more than 2-month-long bilateral training maneuvers dubbed Exercise Kasanga. In a statement today, Philippine Army spokesperson Colonel Cerces Trinidad said the exercise formally started on yesterday and will end in October at Camp Pablo Texon in San Miguel, Bulacan. Trinidad also said FSRR and the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment troops would share skills and knowledge on jungle operations. Around 400 FSRR troops will train side by side with nearly 100 Australian troops in the ongoing bilateral exercises. And finally, Han Mien-mo kicks up a gold-colored metal ball, pirouettes, and catches it on the blade of a knife held in her teeth, keeping up a Myanmar juggling tradition on the edge of extinction. Take a look.
အမှုပညာစစ်စစ်လည်းဖြစ်တယ်ရိုးရာလည်းဖြစ်တယ်အဲ့ဒီပညာရက်ကပျောက်ကွယ်သွားတာအရင်နှမျိုးပုံလည်းကောင်းတယ်ဖော်ထုတ်ရမှလည်းသိမရှိကြဘူးရွေးပညာကြတော့သူကကြောက်ရင်လည်းမရအောင်ရှဲ့ရင်လည်းမရအောင်ဝမ်းနေရင်လည်းမရအောင်ဟိုဒေါသထွက်ရင်လည်းမရအောင်သူကဒီဟာတွေအကုန်ခြုံနေပြီးဒီသမထလိုင်းပေါ့သူတတိကိုအားထားပြီးထူထောင်ပြီးတော့ကစားတဲ့ပညာရ
အရင်သူကျော်နဲ့ဘိုးလိုမျိုးသူကျော်နဲ့ပညာရှင်တွေတယောက်ဖြစ်ချင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်ဘိုးတက်တော်အောင်ဘိုးလိုမျိုးဖြစ်အောင်ဘိုးလိုမျိုးချင်းရဝကြပြကြိုးစားပါမယ်နော်ကြိုးစားပါ
ရတယ်
And that is our news here on ASEAN in Focus. Stay updated about the ASEAN region and beyond. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.